Now I got something I want you to learn about the nation of Israel. Tonight we're going to get into the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel. 2-0. Now, I wish that you all could have been here twice this year so far when I did my teaching on the war with Israel and just about the rest of the world. You're about to see a war take place in Israel that defies absolute description. If you want to study this war, it's found in the book of Ezekiel, 36 through 39. Chapters 36 through 39. And I wish we'd have somehow recorded my teaching on this. Now, in chapter 36 of Ezekiel, this is God's promise that Israel will come home. This is God's promise that Israel will come home. Their homecoming came in 2 phases. So I'll let you finish writing that so that you can write the next part. Their homecoming has come in 2 phases. 1, May 14, 1948. They were once again declared a nation. You'll notice in the scriptures that every time the devil tries to destroy the nation of Israel, when it's over, God always gives them a special gift. This time, in the 20th century, it was World War II. It was the Holocaust. The official estimate is 6 million Jews were murdered during this time. In a 1956 interview, Heinrich Himmler, who was in charge of exterminating the Jews, said it's more like 10 million. So, but the official count is 6 million Jews. So what was their gift from God? What they suffered in the Holocaust? They got their country back. They got their land back. Yes, sir.
What do we call it that happened in 48? That they were recognized by the United Nations as a country?
They got their land back. They got their land back. They have only one time in history had all of their land, and that was under King David. For a brief moment, they had all of their land, and the official land of Israel takes in Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Damascus. It takes in half of the Saudi Peninsula and almost all of Egypt. So when they get all of their land back, and they will, there is going to be a worldwide, have a stroke. Okay, now the second part of them getting their land back was in June of 1967. June of 1967. I remember this. I don't have all these gray hairs for nothing. I remember this. I watched it on television. I remember Walter Cronkite reporting it. It was on TV all day. That Israel, a few days before that, started off. They just wanted a couple of little military campaigns to give themselves some space. They needed to kind of get everybody off of them. And one thing kept leading to another, kept leading to another, kept leading to another, until their commanding general, I remember he had a patch on his eye. He had 2 good eyes. I guess they could have done it in 3 days. That's the joke among the Baptists. But he suddenly found himself with wide open desert and nothing but Jerusalem straight before them. And he told his troops, let's go. Let's take it. And they did. So now, when they took Jerusalem, when Israel retook Jerusalem, it started God's final prophetic time clock. When they retook Jerusalem, it started God's final prophetic time clock. And if we had time, and sometime we just might take the time to get into it.
I spell it one word.
Prophetic?
Yeah.
P-R-O. P-H-E-T. I see.
That's the rest of the sentence, right?
When they retook Jerusalem, it started God's prophetic time clock. And so the next stop will be Revelation. That's the next stop. There are no stops left. So, hey, okay, now, here's what I want us to do. Let's go to Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12, because I want you to see. Now, you'll notice in your textbooks, where did Abraham live when God called him to go start the nation of Israel? Where did Abraham live? Does anybody? Yes, sir.
Ur of the Chaldees.
Ur of the Chaldees. That doesn't mean a thing to you, does it?
No.
Ur of the Chaldees. It almost sounds like some kind of cow or something. You know, hey, that's a Chaldean cow right there. And by the way, in that part of the world, they are heavy into cattle. Ur of the Chaldees. Where is Ur of the Chaldees? Anybody know?
Iran.
Later Babylonia.
Oh, sounds right.
How many of y'all have ever heard of a little country called Kuwait?
Yeah.
In Abraham's day, that same country was called Ur of the Chaldees. He came from Kuwait. That's where he's from. Now, you'll notice in your textbooks, and I want you to go to this map here. I want you to go to this map because I need to show you something. Okay, Ur of the Chaldees is down here in the Persian Gulf. Okay, now, I want you to notice, and I love them for doing this, see how that they just arc, they got this big arc in there? You see that? That's called the Fertile Crescent. Now, if they were going from Babylon, say to Jerusalem, they would take the Fertile Crescent instead of going straight across the desert. You're not going to make it. You won't make it. They take the Fertile Crescent, they take the northern route. That trip takes them about 9 months. This is why that when they left home, they were prepared to be gone for a while. Now, Abraham comes from down at the Persian Gulf, an area that today we call Kuwait. I want you to notice in Genesis chapter 12, the promise that God gives to Abraham. And I need a volunteer to read Numbers 24:9, please. You'll take that. Numbers 24:9. You want to take it, Sarah? You have a Bible back there somewhere? All right, Numbers 24:9. Sarah, you can do it to 14 now. Okay. Well, that's 14. I thought I could do everything. Okay. Look at Genesis chapter 12 and verse 3. Look at God's promise to Abraham, which is his promise to Israel. I will bless them that bless thee. I will bless them that bless Israel. And curse them that curses thee. And curse him that curses Israel. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Now, Genesis 12:3. Genesis 12:3. Do you have it over there? Okay. Here's what God is promising Abraham, the father of the nation of Israel. If somebody blesses you, if somebody blesses Israel, I will bless them. That's why every evening after we're done with school, we take up an offering for who? Especially the little children. What did Jesus say about children? Suffer the little children to come unto me. As a matter of fact, it'd be better if you tied a millstone around your neck and threw yourself into the ocean than to hurt a child. And that's straight from the lips of Jesus. I wouldn't mess with that. And so Mid-State Bible schools will always try to be a great blessing to the little children of Israel. Rabbi Eckstein is opening up an orphanage over there, doing a great job. And they go around Tel Aviv at night, Jerusalem, the cities of Israel, and find little children who are homeless. Many of them watch their mom and dad gunned down the streets. And we're going to try to be a blessing to these children. I based on Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. What is God going to do for us?
Bless us.
Bless us. Okay, now, Sarah, you got Numbers. Whew. All right, hi. You got Numbers 24:9, I think it is. Okay. It's Sarah, honey, stand up. Fill this room with your voice. There you go. There you go. Now you notice he threw into there the word lion. I guess it has to do with the tribe of Judah. Now look at me. Jesus came from the tribe of Judah. And he was called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Now, let's take a look at something else. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Okay. Sarah, do you have Deuteronomy chapter 7? Can you turn to it? Okay. Stand up if you will. Verses 1 through 11 and read loud. Yeah, but go on. The Perizzites and the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. Keep going. You're very good. Thank you. Now, chapter 7 of Deuteronomy. The entire book of Deuteronomy is one sermon. The entire book of Deuteronomy is one sermon. It's Moses' last address to the nation of Israel before he passed away. Here in chapter 7, he gets into a subject. Why did God pick Israel? He never tells us. It's just not because you're the greatest. Matter of fact, you're the fewest in number. Not because you're the strongest. If anything, you're the weakest. But God picked the nation of Israel to represent him on the planet. And I want you to look at something, if you will. Because you're going to say, well, that's good. That's the nation of Israel. How about us? Hang on a second. Verse 9. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God. Verse 10. And repayeth them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him. He will repay him to his face. As born-again believers, we'll really get into this sometime. As born-again believers, the Bible tells us we have been grafted into the covenant that God made with Abraham. And whenever you as a born-again believer, somebody wants to hate you to your face, Oh, wait until that word repay kicks in. They will not like what happens. And sometimes I don't think people are aware of what they do. Amen. They're not aware of what they do. And whenever you have a true born-again believer who wants to live for Jesus and somebody mistreats them, the Abrahamic covenant kicks in because we were grafted in. And I want to explain something to you. Back in Genesis chapter 12 and verse 3, I'll hate them that hate you and bless them that bless you. That's also for us. That when a born-again believer really is trying to live for Jesus, but the devil puts it in somebody's head to mistreat you. That's why Jesus said, listen, vengeance is mine. I will repay. We love them. We forgive them. We love them. We learn to let it go. Why? Because Jesus is going to take care of it. I've seen it too many times in my life. I've seen it too many times in my life. I won't say it. I'll say it. Out in Virginia, the four main people who led to my destruction and led to the destruction of the church I've had, that church isn't even there anymore. It's not even there anymore. They even destroyed the church, thinking they was doing God a favor. All four of them. Everybody say four. All four of them died a horrible death. All four of them. Because you don't touch God's church and you don't touch His anointing. Okay, now we're going to go to the right, and we're going to take time here because I want you to see this. Let's go to Zechariah, the book of Zechariah. If you need to use your table of contents, go ahead. The book of Zechariah. I want you to see this because in the not too distant future, we're going to be seeing these things happening right before our eyes. It says Zechariah. Let's go to chapter 2 in Zechariah. And like I said, if you need to use your table of contents, please feel free to. Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. Are you there, Sarah? All right, I need verse 8, please. Whoa, it's back up. Hold the book like this. Keep your chin up. Take diction. Clearly. Come on.
For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent not the nations before you, for he that toucheth and toucheth my holy God.
I thank you. Look at the verse. For thus saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. After the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that touches you touches the apple of his eye. And that's why that in this war that is about to start, you've got approximately 500 million troops that's going to march on the nation of Israel. 415 million of them will not go home. Is that Zechariah 2:8? Will not go home. So in Ezekiel 36 through 39, here's what you got. In chapter 36, God's promise that Israel will go home. Chapter 37, May 14, 1948. Chapter 38, the actual war itself. And chapter 39, the aftermath of the war. And we are seeing the beginnings of it now. Say that again, please. 36 is the promise that they're going home. You got the other? Chapter 37 is May 14, 1948. Chapter 38, the war itself. And I'll give you your hats for this one, folks. This is going to be a good one. And then chapter 39, the aftermath of the war. Now, there is something in these verses here in Ezekiel, a lot of theologians have debated if that war is going to be on this side of the rapture or the other side of the rapture. Will the saints be on the earth when this war happens? Because we're definitely here for the foreshadows of it. We're seeing it now. I don't even be pessimistic, but we got a fight that we ain't going to be able to get around. There's no getting around this fight. But in these chapters, it talks about the temple, that the temple is there. So that tells me that would have to be after the rapture, if my calculations are correct. I'll say this, concerning the rapture and this war that is to come, the two will be very close. It will be very close, because like I said, we're seeing the foreshadows of that now. All right, let's go back to Genesis. Genesis chapter 12 is where Abraham is called of God to leave Ur the Chaldees. We're going to bypass some of the other stuff because I want to go now to chapter 37. Chapter 37. And that is the account of Joseph, chapters 37 through 50. Chapters 37 through 50. I like Joseph because me and him are so much alike. In some ways that's good, some ways not so good. Joseph, one of the younger sons of Jacob, and Jacob should have known better. Jacob favored Joseph, and he didn't care who knew it, and that also included the other sons. He didn't care who knew it. He gave Joseph a coat of many colors. In their culture, that coat of many colors meant this: I'm Daddy's favorite, and Daddy's going to give the lion's share of the estate to me when he passes away. Jacob should have never done that. You see, Bible characters are still real people. They're Bible characters. They did exist. Many of you can go to Israel today and actually see their tombs. But they made mistakes. Jacob made the mistake of favoring Joseph in front of all of the other children and did not care who saw it. Now, here's where Joseph made a mistake. He was an immature, spoiled brat. Joseph was an immature, spoiled brat who was obnoxious to live around. Because he had his coat of many colors, and he made sure. Hello, sir. Hello, is your name Dale?
Yep.
Come on in, Dale. Have a seat over here if you would, please. Sorry I'm late. That's all right. You're here. Now watch this, please. Joseph, here in Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37. Joseph, a spoiled brat. And then he would go out and, I had a dream last night. The sun and the moon and 12 stars bowed to me. Well, that's his mom, his dad, his brothers. He's a brat. He's not just brat. So finally his brothers had this plot to kill him. So they figured, well, let's not kill him. Let's just sell him off to some slave owners. And they drag him down to Egypt, and he's drugged down to Egypt as a slave. Let's fast forward a little bit. He gets hired into Captain Potiphar's house. Captain Potiphar, what it boiled down to today, was chief of security for the Pharaoh. That's what his office boiled down to. He was chief of security for Pharaoh's bodyguards. And Captain Potiphar's wife likes young boys. Matter of fact, if you read the Bible, he was about 17 at this time. She likes young boys. He said, I'm going to live for God. So what does she do? She manufactures a story that he tried to take advantage of her. Potiphar is left with no recourse but to put him in prison. And he's there. And his prison job was to be taken down to the lowest dungeon and a servant for the prisoners in the lowest dungeon. He was their servant for 13 years. He was their servant in the lowest dungeon. He's down there where the cockroaches are the biggest and the rats are the meanest, and the prisoners probably have about a bad disposition. You know, sometimes God will take you off to the side. It's not that he's through with you. You got to grow up a little bit. You got to grow up a little bit. I bet Japheth would love to drive a car.
Oh, yeah.
He'll let you know it. So why don't you let him drive the car?
I do with
Why don't you let him drive the car?
He's wet.
He's not ready, is he? He's not ready. And sometimes we're sitting on the sideline. I'll raise my hand. For a matter of fact, I'll raise both hands. We're sitting on the sideline. God, why? God, why? Come on, God. I got this burning desire. I got this burning passion. I want to get up. I want to get on with it. And all I've been doing for years is just sitting here. So one day Joseph gets in two very interesting prisons. One is the king's cupbearer. One is the king's baker. And they both have a dream one night. And they tell Joseph the dream. The cupbearer says, you know what? I had this dream, and Joseph said, here is the dream. Here's the interpretation. In 3 days, Potiphar's going to put you back on your job, back to work, like it never happened. Well, the baker is very excited. In 3 days, not bad. Hey, Joseph, I had a dream. And he talks about his dream. And Joseph says, well, in 3 days, Potiphar's going to hang you. 3 days later, the cupbearer was back serving Pharaoh his cup. 3 days later, the baker was hanged. And what does Joseph ask the cupbearer to do as he's going back to Pharaoh's house? Would you please plead my case to Pharaoh? I'm in here for a crime that never even took place. It never happened. But yet I've been here all these years. And when the cupbearer got back to Pharaoh's house, the cupbearer forgot that Joseph ever exists. You're going to have to learn something about the ministry. And I want to teach you something about the ministry right now that I've had to live with time and time and time again. The ministry will pull the bitter tears out of you day and night. When you want to serve God, the devil's going to make sure people hurt you. When you want to go to Mid-State Bible Institute, the devil's going to make sure people hurt you. And I got 38 years experience of that. 38 years. Now, so what happens? 3 years later, the king has a horrible dream. He's got 7 beautiful cows. 7 wretched cows come up and eat up the 7 beautiful cows. He has a second dream. He's got 7 beautiful ears of corn. 7 blighted ears come up and eat them up. He can't figure out the interpretation. And so the cupbearer, he goes up and he says, King, I remember my sins these days. And he recalled how that Joseph in prison interpreted his dream correctly. Pharaoh said, I want to see him. That's not going to hold long story short. Joseph woke up that morning, a slave in the lowest dungeon of the lowest prison, and went to bed that night, first governor of Egypt, and a brand new wife, and a mansion to match. Because when he told the king the interpretation of his dream, the king then said, the only person I can pick to handle this job to get us ready for the 7 bad years is you. Because the 7 cows and 7 good years of corn represent 7 good years of plenty, to be followed by 7 years of unbelievable famine. And there's a whole lot more to this story than what maybe meets the eye. I don't have time to get into it like I want to. This coming week, I want you to read chapter 2. I want you to go through chapter 2. Read it carefully, especially the part about the Abrahamic covenant here in chapter 2 of your text. I want you to read it. Now, homework. I want you in the back of your books, what page are we looking at here? Page 113 in the back of your books, they have your homework assignments. Now, for next Thursday, for next Thursday, I want question 1, question 4, and turn the page, and questions 12 and 13. Questions 12 and 13 of chapter 2. Now, here is something I want you to write down because I want you to remember this. Between now and Memorial Day next year, you're on your honor to read the entire Old Testament. Between now and Memorial Day next year. That should not be much each day.
I just finished it with that. By Memorial Day?
By Memorial Day. Next May. Let's give everybody time to read it. I mean, I could do it. And that's getting to be better. All right. Let's see here.
But we still have to from Genesis to Esther by December 1st.
I tell you what, we're not going to put that time frame on you. See, we're going to, right after this, when we come back for the spring semester, we're going to start Old Testament Survey Part 2.
Okay.
And so I tell you what, just between now and next May, Memorial Day, read the entire Old Testament.
Okay.
And we should be there. Okay, that's all I've got for this class. Let's take a little break. Dale, good to have you here.